Selected parts from the book My Life Story, written by Shri KJS Dhillon, Part 12 and 13. It was the September of 1988 when, having finished the peace tenure in Udaipur, our unit moved to the Kashmir Valley. Kashmir, as we all know, comprises of a beautiful valley approximately 135 km long and 30 km wide, with the Pir Panjal mountain range towards the south and southwest, the Shamshabari mountain ranges towards the northwest and north, and the great Himalayas towards the northeast. Kashmir, in addition to being famous for its mountains, lakes, springs, and the mystic shrines that are nestled among them, has been a spiritual land since time immemorial and has been known as a land of saints and sages. Buddhism and Hinduism flourished in the valley until the 14th century Christ era. Hindu dynasties like the Karkota, Utpala, and Lohara ruled Kashmir before the preachers and invaders from Central Asia came and Islam took root here. Kashmiris are very intelligent people known for their artistic attributes with interests in poetry. Kashmir has always been a home to a very intellectual and educated society. Sharda Peeth has been an ancient center of learning and lies in Sharda village along the banks of river Kishanganga, now across the line of control in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Sharda Peeth has been mentioned in various historical and literary texts and has a significant spiritual and cultural importance as scholars traveled long distances to access its vast library and texts. All the religions, that is, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and Sikhism, have contributed immensely to the essence of Kashmiriyat. Sharda temple, dedicated to goddess Sharda, that is, goddess Saraswati, is one of the most revered Hindu temples, which has a close architectural resemblance to the Sun Temple of Martand. The temple symbolizes the elegance and zenith of the medieval era temple architecture in Kashmir, which was deeply influenced by Indo Greek and Bactrian styles. As mentioned above, the Sharda temple now lies in ruins in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The temple of Martand near Anantnag, as per its Sanskrit name, Martand, is dedicated to the sun god. The Martand temple, built on top of a plateau, mostly in ruins now, has a colonnaded courtyard with the main shrine in the center and is surrounded by 84 smaller shrines. The entrances of the shrine are huge, which adds to the grandeur of the temple, with walls in the complex having intricate figurines of different gods and goddesses such as Vishnu, Ganga, and Yamuna. The Avantiswamy temple near the town of Avantipura, presently also the headquarters of the army's counterinsurgency force called Victor, was built by King Avantivarman of the Utpala dynasty in the year 1853 to 1855 Christ era on the banks of river Vitasta, that is Jhelum. Originally known as Visvasara, the town of Avantipura was also a capital at the time. The Avanti Swami temple is smaller in size but has a striking resemblance to the older Marthand Sun temple. Amarnath cave is a very revered Hindu shrine in Kashmir, located in the great Himalayan mountain range at an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet above mean sea level. During the months of July and August every year, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world trek to the holy cave to worship the naturally formed ice stalagmite, the Shivling. The pilgrimage or yatra concludes with the holy silver mace reaching the only cave that coincides with the Hindu festival of Raksha Bandhan. I consider myself singularly honored to have visited the holy cave on 59 occasions and received the blessings of Baba Barfam. In the year 1989, my company was deployed along the northern route to secure and maintain the arduous foot track and also provide immediate medical assistance to stranded pilgrims, including servicemen and ex servicemen. To achieve this task, we constructed a wooden log bridge on a mountain stream at Sangam, the confluence of two routes, a few days prior to the commencement of the yatra. Once the yatra started, I walked along the complete route up to the holy cave for 57 days continuously and offered my prayers and returned to our company base at Baltal by the evening. The Jesteshwara temple or Shankaracharya temple as it is popularly known is perched on top of Shankaracharya hill next to the famous Dal lake in the center of Srinagar. The stone temple built by Jaluka, the son of Emperor Ashoka, is dedicated to Lord Shiva and is believed to date back to 220 before Christ era. The existing structure is largely believed to have been made by Gopaditya around 4th Christian era. The seer Adi Shankaracharya is supposed to have visited the temple in 8th century, which is how the temple got associated with the name Shankaracharya. The Kheer Bhavani temple is a highly revered Hindu shrine situated in the Tulmul village about 22 km from Srinagar. The temple, made of white marble, sits in the middle of a hexagonal sacred Nag, that is, spring in Kashmiri, and is surrounded by a large number of chinar trees, which render a very beautiful aura to the place. The water of the Nag is said to change its color, signaling the portent of the future. While the hues of pale blue and green are supposed to be a good omen, red and black colors reflected in the water of the spring are considered to be inauspicious. Goddess Rajna, an incarnation of Goddess Durga, is the presiding deity of this shrine. The temple is named after the popular Indian dessert made of rice, milk, and sugar, kheer, which is offered to the goddess. Pandrithan or Pani Mandir, an ancient Hindu temple inside the Badami Bagh military cantonment in Srinagar, is situated about 100 yards away from River Jhelum. This temple is very close to my life as I have always paid obeisance here before the commencement of and on the termination of all my tenures in Kashmir. The great mystic saint Lal Ded was born in Patrithan. The Patrithan Shiva temple is also known as the Meluvardhanaswamy temple as it was built by Meru, a minister of King Partha who ruled Kashmir in 10th century. The square stone shrine is like a little jewel sitting in the middle of water that can be accessed via a footbridge. There are huge chinar trees all around, lending gentle shade to the surroundings. The roof of this temple is still in place and is unique as it has been chiseled out of a single block of stone which is artistically carved. Rani Mandir, the shrine of Shiva, is perched atop a tiny hillock in the famous tourist destination town of Gulmarg, known for being the world's third highest skiing resort with powdery snow runs. The Apravat summit near Gondola 2, standing at a height of nearly 4,400 meters above mean sea level, has the longest ski slope in Asia. The Rani temple was built by the Dogra ruler Maharaja Harsingh in the early 20th century. His better half, Maharani Mohini Bai Sisodia, was an ardent believer in Lord Shiva and used to offer prayers here, which is how the temple derives its name Rani Mandir. Many Bollywood movies have been shot in the surroundings, and it is also the location of the popular song Jai Jai Shiva Shankar Kanta Lage Na Kankar from the 1970s movie Aapki Kasam. Many Kashmiri towns, villages, and locales have the word Nag suffixed to their names. For example, in the case of Anantnag, a town in South Kashmir, Anant means infinite and Nag means spring in Kashmir. Thus, Anantnag means infinite springs. There are many springs around Anantnag, including Nagbal, Salaknag, Kokernag, Virinag, Matanag, and Maliknag. Virinag, a spring at the base of the Pir Panjal mountain range located approximately 25 km from Anantnag, is a major source of the enchanting Jhelum river which originates from Virinag in South Kashmir and meanders through the valley till it finally enters POK at the common poster near Uri in North Kashmir. Anantnag also houses a beautiful shrine in Matan surrounded by huge chinar trees which must be hundreds of years old and has a huge Shivlinga at the center of a rectangular natural spring. The blue green water of the Nag is full of fish of different hues which are considered very sacred. In fact, most holy springs and lakes have fish in them that are never killed or eaten. According to the folklore, there exists a fish in this spring that wears a gold nose ring. Only the lucky one gets to spot it, and those who do are truly blessed by the gods. Dargah Hazrat Bal, a 17th century mosque, is situated in the locality of Hazrat Bal on the northern banks of the famous Dal Lake. It is the most revered shrine in the valley of Kashmir, not only among Muslims but also among people of other faiths. According to the local belief, the shrine houses a relic, the sacred hair of Prophet Muhammad. The shrine is the most preferred mosque for Friday prayers. Dastgir Sahib is a 200-year-old shrine situated in the Khaniyar locality, which was built in memory of Sheikh Syed Abdul Qadir Jilani. The pilgrim site of Dastgir Sahib is visited by many people irrespective of their religious faiths. Devotees tie threads at the shrine, which are untied once their wishes are fulfilled, a practice commonly followed even by the Kashmiri Pandits visiting the shrine. Charar-e-Sharif is located at a distance of 32 kilometers from Srinagar on the way to Usmarg, another beautiful tourist resort in Kashmir. The shrine was built more than 600 years ago in honor of the Muslim Sufi saint Hazrat Sheikh Nur Uddin Wali, who was a benefactor saint of Muslims and made many contributions in the field of poetry. Sikhs are a very intrinsic part of Kashmiri society ever since the ruler of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and even earlier. There are many gurudwaras across Kashmir. Gurudwara Chatti Patshahi, named after the sixth Guru, is located on the banks of River Jhelum and Dal Lake, outside the Khati Ghat of Hari Parbat Fort. The site of the Gurudwara is believed to be the house of Mai Bhagbhari, who had for long been yearning for a glimpse of Guru Hargobind Singh Sahib, who fulfilled her wish and not only visited her but also appeared donning her gown. This Gurudwara, one of the most important Sikh shrines in Kashmir, comprises a rectangular hall with the sanctum sanctorum in the middle and a spacious terrace in front. The campus of the shrine also houses an old well that is said to have been dug on the orders of Guru Hargobind Singh Sahib. Kashmiri artisans are also renowned worldwide for their craftsmanship and skills, including embroidery, carpet weaving, woodcraft, papier mache, metalware, tapestry, and wicker craft, to name just a few. For the non initiated, Kashmiri carpets symbolize the finest, most intricate, and exquisite form of weaving artistry. The exclusive range and depth of their designs, their opulent look and feel, and the vivacity of colors make them coveted possessions for many with a keen eye for aesthetics. All of us have seen or heard of the world famous Keukenhof tulip fields of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, made famous in India by the Amitabh Bachchan and Rekha starrer Hindi movie of 1981, Silsila. However, a splash of those colorful rolling tulip fields is now available in our very own Srinagar. In September 1988, our unit commenced its move from Udaipur to the Kashmir Valley. Kashmir at the time seemed quite peaceful, ostensibly living up to its popular sobriquet of heaven on earth. We moved to Ahmedabad in the military convoy as we had to board the military special train from Sabarmati railway station. I was awestruck by the very name Sabarmati, which, as we all know, is a highly renowned place in the history of India, being home to Gandhi Ashram. This journey by the military special train clearly entailed touching upon more than one famous location. Here, I must mention the unique characteristics of the military special, which is also referred to as rolling stock, a term that I actually came to know of much later when I was posted in the Weapons and Equipment Directorate of the Army Headquarters. At the outset, I must confess that it takes forever for the rolling stock to get positioned at the starting railway station because of the complex management involved, as at any given time numerous military units are moving to and from field or peace stations spread across the length and breadth of the country. However, once the rolling stock is placed, the railway authorities constantly push the unit members to load up soonest, lest demurrage charges are levied on the unit. Loading of the military special train is an extremely well orchestrated exercise as the personal baggage of the entire unit's personnel as well as the essential equipment and in certain cases even vehicles have to be laden on to the train. In this case, we spent 10 to 12 hours to fully load the military special at the Sabarmati railway station. Those were highly memorable days for all the officers, with most of us being accompanied by our families. My wife and I were newly married and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves reveling in the idiosyncrasies of an Indian railway station by day and visiting local restaurants in Ahmedabad to sample Gujarati cuisine by night. The army provides you such exciting opportunities to see the remotest areas and beautiful locales in India, meet wonderful people, understand the different cultures, and taste exquisite cuisines from across the country. It was also the first time I saw a revolving restaurant when we visited Patang, the restaurant located on the top floor in a multi storied building in the heart of Ahmedabad city. Needless to say, I hardly remember what I ate there, as for me, the entire focus of the evening was on the sights observed from the vantage point, literally perched in the middle of the sky. Finally, after much action and activity, D Day arrived and the military special was ready for takeoff. In army lingo, the military special is characterized by the phrase chali to chali, nahi chali to nahi chali. If it moves, it can cover hundreds of kilometers at a stretch, but if it does not move, it can stay put in the same place without budging an inch for 3 days at a stretch. Another important aspect of a unit's move by military special is that during the journey, fresh rations for all the officers and jawans on board the train are collected from various military cantonments that fall on the route of the train. This entails constant contact with not only the military station's supply depots but also the concerned railway station masters so that the latter allow the train to be parked at a decent platform for a reasonable duration, enabling the ration collection party to go to supply depot, collect rations, complete the necessary documentation, return to the railway station, and distribute the rations to all the company cookhouses in different coaches. This complex management of the military special train in an era of no mobile phones was a Herculean task in itself. However, the most difficult job always was to get a decent parking place at the railway station because the station master had his own priority of ensuring the unhindered and scheduled movement of passenger trains. Hence, the most suave officer exhibiting highly polished and persuasive manners was nominated to deal with the railway authorities. His job would start at least 7 railway stations earlier, where he would rush to the cabin of the station master of every railway station and route and speak to the station master where the train had planned a halt for the replenishment of supplies on the railway telephone network. The journey, however, began with a characteristic speed breaker, as it were. We were scheduled to start at around 6 p.m. on the stipulated day. In preparation for the long journey, my wife took a relaxing bath and dozed off, anticipating waking up at a new destination. However, when she got up from her slumber at around 11 p.m., asking me where we had reached, I had to reluctantly inform her that we were still at the Sabarmati station as the process of changing the rail engine or power as it is called in railways lingo was taking unduly long due to a delay in the arrival of the engine. A Punjabi stand up comedian, while explaining the journey by military special trains, had very aptly described the situation as we will reach only if the train starts. Notwithstanding the delay, it did start finally, and the journey was enlivened by a food competition among the various rifle companies of the unit traveling on the train, as a result of which we were lucky to be served an assortment of mouth-watering dishes every day. Some JCOs officers and ladies were assigned the responsibility of judging the food items served during the competition, with exotic prizes being awarded to the winners of the culinary contests. Another highlight of this train voyage was its passage along the Ranthambore National Park, the famous sanctuary in Rajasthan, wherein all the binoculars came out and everyone was peeping out of the windows, with the train driver having been requested to move slowly. Although we did not spot the beast, the experience of traversing through Tigerland was no small achievement. Ultimately, on reaching Jammu, we boarded our civil trucks and set off for Srinagar, the last leg of our journey, from where we were scheduled to travel to our final destination, the unit location in the Kupwara district of North Kashmir. An incident that occurred at the Srinagar transit camp is worth recounting here. During our staging halt at Srinagar, the officers were staying at the Srinagar transit camp while the other ranks were housed at the old airfield a little distance away. The Srinagar transit camp is also the starting and terminating point for the road convoy to and from Jammu for the normal military transient going on or returning from leave, Since the road convoys usually left for Jammu from the Srinagar transit camp at 5 am, in order to reach the destination before light, the Kashmir civilian orderlies in the transit camp would serve morning tea to the transit officers in their rooms at an unearthly hour of 3:45 am. Thereafter, the same orderlies would serve breakfast in the dining room by 4:30 am or so, after which they would help the officers in loading their luggage onto the trucks, and the Jammu convoy would finally march off by 5 am. However, on this particular occasion, due to our long haul the previous day from Udhampur to Srinagar, the commanding officer had decided that our convoy would leave for Kupwara at the much more reasonable time of 9 am. Hence, we were deep in slumber when there was a knock on the door of our room in the wee hours of 3:45 am. Since I, then a captain, was sharing the room with a senior Major Horsey Chatrana, the honors of answering the knock fell upon me. I grumpily opened the door only to find a civilian orderly standing there with 2 cups of tea. Peeping out from his quilt, my roommate, Horsey Sir, asked me who was visiting us at that preternatural hour, and I replied that it was the waiter with our morning cuppa. Since we were scheduled to leave much later, Major Jatrana advised me to send him off with instructions to serve the tea at the more decent time of 7:45 am. Unperturbed, the orderly just walked in and left the 2 cups on the table with the ingenious suggestion, साहब इधर ही रख के जा रहा हूँ, 7:45 पी लेना. I am leaving your cups of tea here. You can drink them at 7:45 am. We were both dumbstruck by his gumption. This incident stayed with me, and when, 31 years later, I visited the same transit camp as the 15 Corps commander, I was gripped with nostalgia and especially went to the same room on the first floor that I had occupied as a young captain. I also asked to meet the same tea boy whose face I still remembered vividly. The gentleman in question, Abdul Hamid Khan, who had been a mess waiter more than 3 decades ago, had retired as a head steward after putting in 40 years of service at Srinagar Transit Camp. Delighted to meet him, I hugged him warmly and also gave him a small award for his adroit behavior and the tea that he had served on the cold winter night during my first official visit to Kashmir. Coming back to the situation in Kashmir in 1988, as our unit settled down in our new location and we got busy with our routine training activities, we noticed an undercurrent of hostility and tension. Although in 1988 the scourge of terrorism had not started, the issue of alleged animosity against India and Indians among a few members of the local population was quite visible in normal day to day life. It would thus be a fallacy to say that trouble in Kashmir started only after 19 January 1990, the date synonymous with the exodus Kashmiri Pandits from the valley. Various indicators of trouble brewing, such as selective and targeted eliminations, incidents of intimidation, availability of weapons, infiltration of trained terrorists into the Indian territory, and exfiltration of young Kashmiri boys to Pakistan occupied Kashmir for secessionist training were already apparent in 1988 and 1989. There were very few uncommitted reserve military formations or units in the hinterlands as most of the combat or supporting arms units were deployed on the line of control LOC with only the headquarters and a few softer support elements stationed in the hinterland. Further, since the deployment on the LOC was basically intended to withstand any conventional enemy attacks, a majority of the troops were focused on dominating the enemy approaches or guarding the main access so as to prevent any loss of territory to the enemy rather than occupying all the gaps and countering infiltration as is being done nowadays. The Rashtriya Rifles were not present in Kashmir during the initial phase of terrorism and came in much later, initially as a relocation from the state of Punjab, which itself was going through a very intense phase of terrorism in those days, and later as a newly raised counter-insurgency force. This fact was exploited by Pakistan, which started indulging in the exfiltration of young Kashmiri boys, imparting them training in terrorism and sending them back post the training armed with heavy weapons. Providing security in the hinterland and maintaining law and order on the valley floor was the responsibility of the state police and civil administration. Another issue which is often flagged is that of the 1987 assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir, which is considered a trigger for the advent of insurgency and terrorism because it is alleged to have been a rigged election, post which the National Conference came to power and Farooq Abdullah became the chief minister. Selective killings had also started in 1989, and intriguingly, the then Chief Minister resigned on 18th January 1990, followed by the declaration of a governor's rule in the state. It is not a coincidence that the infamous date of the exodus of the Kashmir Pandits fell just a day later, that is on 19th January 1990. The atmosphere in the region was highly toxic as open announcements were being made asking Kashmiri Pandits to leave, and a few prominent Kashmiri Pandit personalities like Justice Neelkant Ganju and Lassa Kaul were also assassinated. Justice Ganju was targeted and killed by terrorists on 4 November 1989 because, as a Sessions Court judge, he had awarded the death sentence to the accused Maqbul Bhatt of the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front in the Amar Chand murder trial in August 1968. Justice Ganju was among the early Kashmiri Pandit victims of terrorism in Kashmir. Rasa Kaul, director Doordarshan Kashmir, was shot dead by terrorists on 13 February 1990 because he did not bow down to the terrorist threats of not broadcasting Indian programs on Doordarshan, Kashmir, and leave Srinagar. Since our unit was posted in North Kashmir, we were very friendly with the local population in our area. I recall an incident concerning the caretaker of a local Shiv temple in the village next to our unit's location. The caretaker, a middle aged Kashmiri Pandit, was also a teacher in the local government school, which was very close to where our battalion was stationed. This Panditji used to frequently visit our battalion mandir with his family and his wife and daughters, and used to socialize with the families of our officers, as the ladies from the army community also often visited the Shiv temple to pay obeisance. It was obvious that an extremely congenial environment prevailed around the temple. However, on the night of 19th January 1990, the Panditji came over to the battalion headquarters and informed us that some of his students, who had presumably joined the terrorist ranks, had come to secretly inform him that his family was now a target and the terrorists were planning to neutralize them. Being forewarned of things, the Panditji rushed to our unit for help, and the unit eventually helped evacuate his family. However, many others not located near the army garrison may not have been that fortunate. In addition, the patrols were sent to evacuate a few more Hindu families in the nearby regions that may have also been targeted by the terrorists. These efforts were, however, constrained by the fact that the army's interaction with the civilians in the villages far away from their location was very limited, and the troops did not have much knowledge about the habitations of the Kashmir Pandits. Notwithstanding these challenges, the army tried its best to save as many families as they could. I, along with my troops, personally evacuated a few Kashmiri Pandit families to safety. As most of us may be aware, Kashmir Pandits were the backbone of the education system in Kashmir, and they occupied the most prestigious and influential places in academia at the functional level, such as that of teachers in a primary and higher secondary schools, professors in colleges, as also the decision making or senior executive level appointments like deans, chancellors, and vice chancellors at universities. Questions are often raised as to why the army was not called in to prevent or at least counter the assault on Kashmiri Pandits. There is a definite need to clarify certain important aspects and present them in the correct perspective so that doubts or apprehensions are put to rest. I must reiterate here that Jammu and Kashmir had not yet been brought under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act AFSPA, nor had it been declared a disturbed area at the time. As I stated earlier, during the late 1980s and early 1990s, most of the army units stationed in Kashmir were primarily deployed on the LOC with only the headquarters and certain softer support elements in the hinterland, most of those also close to the LOC. As a matter of constitutional responsibility, in the states where AFSPA and or the Disturbed Areas Act have not been imposed, the maintenance of law and order remains the sole responsibility of the local police under the state civil administration. Notwithstanding this, the army regulations allow the state or central civil authorities to requisition the specified number of army columns for a specified period of time in a specified area for aid to civil authorities by written order of the civil administration to bring an adverse law and order situation under control, to help maintain essential services in case of a natural breakdown or a man-made situation such as strikes by certain employees during natural calamities such as earthquakes and any other type of aid that may be needed by the civil administration. It is pertinent to mention here that any such aid to civil authorities may include the provision of army manpower, heavy earth moving equipment like dozers, excavators, and medical assistance that includes doctors, nursing assistants, medicines, ambulances, casualty evacuation, etc. All army columns are employed with the guiding principles being use of minimum force and acting in good faith. All such requisitioned army columns are to be compulsorily accompanied by a nominated magistrate who is supposed to assess the gravity of the situation and thereafter give written or verbal instructions only in an emergency, and it is followed by written instructions to bring the deteriorating situation under control. The nominated magistrate accompanying the requisitioned army columns is also responsible for de-requisitioning the army columns, giving the time of de-requisition immediately after the situation has been brought back under control. Therefore, in Jammu and Kashmir, during the period prior to the imposition of AFSPA in September 1990, it was the sole responsibility and prerogative of the civil administration to assess the situation and take action to requisition the army for aid to civil authorities. Another aspect that is usually overlooked is that numerous weapons had already been smuggled into Kashmir long before the carnage against the Kashmiri Pandits and targeted killings had begun. A few villages, especially in districts like Kupwara and Bandipora, close to the LOC, had been penetrated by the terrorists, and almost half the youth in some of these villages had been indoctrinated by the separatists and sent for training in POK. Large numbers of people had thus going missing from the villages long before the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits took center stage. There were clear indications of the festering terrorism, as many local buses would halt at the bus stops, with the conductors attracting passengers by shouting Muzaffarabad, the destination for aspiring terrorists who were being lured to visit the training camps in POK. Although these buses may not have physically plied to Muzaffarabad, these incidents were open markers of how Kashmir was rapidly descending into a morass of terrorism, and yet things were allowed to reach a point of no return. After the incidents of 19 January 1990 and post the imposition of governor's rule, army columns were requisitioned virtually every day to launch cordon and search at various locations all over the Kashmir Valley. The number of militancy related incidents occurring in Kashmir Valley was so huge that the security forces present in the valley per se were considered inadequate for handling the situation, and additional forces were desperately needed. It was on 10th September 1990 that the Armed Forces Jammu and Kashmir Special Powers Act 1990 was enforced, which was deemed to have come into effect on 5 July 1990. The arrival of certain additional security forces, relocation of the few Rashtriya Rifles battalions from Punjab to Jammu and Kashmir, as also the raising of additional RR units and their deployment across the entire Kashmir Valley helped bring the situation somewhat under control. Soon after the imposition of governor's rule, the requisition and employment of the army to aid civilian authorities increased manifold. On one occasion, within a week of the imposition of governor's rule on 27 January 1990, our unit was tasked to move to Thrall as part of a major counter-terrorism operation. Thrall was a tiny village in South Kashmir, but in huge disproportion to its size, it is notorious till date for having nurtured or housed the maximum number of local or foreign terrorists in South Kashmir. The officiating commanding officer had created a small hit team under Second Lieutenant Smiley. The unit debussed about 2 kilometers short of Thrall village at approximately 3:30 am, and all the Rashtriya Rifle companies moved towards their respective locations for executing their plan before first light. Smiley's hit team was instructed to stay at the debussing point next to the road till he received further instructions to hit as per the emerging situation. It was a freezing cold January morning in Kashmir and it was snowing heavily. In consonance with the typical hospitality that is part of army culture, a Jawan from his hit team asked Smiley if he would like to have a cup of tea. He, of course, warmed up to the idea, following which the brass kerosene stove sitting in a 1-ton vehicle, a 1-ton was a World War vintage petrol vehicle, was lit up to prepare the tea. Since it was an important operation, the course commander a very strict disciplinarian, wanted to be personally present at the operational site and was driving into the village with his cavalcade at the very moment when the flames from the stove leapt into the air and were clearly visible to him in the distance. Seeing a burning stove inside a petrol vehicle, the corps commander, already being a strict disciplinarian, completely lost his cool, halted his cavalcade near the debussing point, and asked for the senior-most officer at the spot to come forward and give an explanation for this transgression. Suddenly, everyone started looking for the senior-most officer, and Second Lieutenant Smiley emerged from the shadows with the black cotton epaulets on his shoulders as part of Rajputan Rifles uniform, not showing his rank in the dark. The corps commander thundered, "Who are you?" Second Lieutenant Ranjan Mahajan, sir, came the quick and subdued response from the senior-most officer. There was a discernible silence, after which the corps commander muttered, "Second Lieutenant," and just drove off. Obviously, he did not wish to target a junior officer and had been looking for someone at least of the rank of captain to take him to task. Till today, Smiley remains ever so thankful to the then officiating CO for not having promoted him as captain. Otherwise, he may have been literally skinned alive by the corps commander for the sin of brewing tea inside a petrol vehicle on that night of the counter-terrorism operation in Thrall. This incident notwithstanding, the ever so efficient and professionally sound Smiley rose to become a major general in the Indian Army. This operation was to be followed by many others in the coming days as Kashmir progressively became a hotbed of terrorism, keeping our unit perpetually on our toes and in the thick of anti terrorism operations. Thanks for listening. Now, some word power. I'm leaving your cups of tea here. You can drink them at 7:45. We're both dumbstruck by his gumption. Gumption. Gumption means courage and determination. Delighted to meet him, I hugged him warmly and also gave him a small award for his adroit behavior and the tea that he had served on the cold winter night during my first official visit to Kashmir. Adroit behavior. ADROIT. Adroit means skillful and clever, especially in dealing with people. Adroit means skillful and clever. For example, she is adroit at avoiding awkward questions. The Martand temple, built on top of a plateau, mostly in ruins now, has a colonnade courtyard. COLLONADE, colonnade. A row of stone columns with equal space between them, usually supporting a roof. My wife and I were newly married and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves reveling in the idiosyncrasies of a Indian railway station by day and visiting local restaurants in Ahmedabad to sample Gujarati cuisine at night. IDYOCYNCHROSY. Idiosyncrasy means uniqueness or personal distinctiveness, a special or peculiar behavior or quality. For example, eating raw garlic is his idiosyncrasy. Taking bath always with cold water is her idiosyncrasy. Suddenly, everyone started looking for the senior-most officer, and Second Lieutenant Smiley emerged from the shadows with the black cotton epaulets on his shoulders. EPAULE epaulette means a decoration on the shoulder of a coat, jacket, etc., especially when a part of military uniform. Thanks for your attention.